Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the All In Podcast. As always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Eli Cooper, and I'm once again joined by my guy, Mike Badzik. Season 2. We are relaunching. We're back for Season 2 after a little over a month layoff. My guy, how you been?
Been great. Not as good as I am right now to see your face again. To talk some hoops and sports in general. We are back after taking a holiday hiatus. You might call it. We are back. Season 2. We're going to be coming in hot and heavy.
Yeah, and you guys know we love to talk about the NBA or just basketball in general. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to jump into today. We're going to kick Season 2 off with some hoops talk, especially since there's been so much that's happened in the NBA since we last saw you guys. Before we get into all of the crazy topics we have for today, make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you're hitting that subscribe button for more All In Podcast content. And you can also find All In Politics on our YouTube channel. Their third season kicked off a couple of weeks ago as well. So you can catch up on their show on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Mike, first things first. Since we haven't talked about any real NBA action in a while, we got to talk about James Harden and his crazy right?
Yeah, we have to talk about it. We talked about it before it happened quite a bit, and I was on the don't do it, don't trade him to the Nets, don't give him what he wants train. It got to a point where I think maybe the Philly offer looked like they weren't willing to move on some pieces, so it looks like Nets were the only option. So he ends up with the Nets. And since he's gotten there, they have been easily the most exciting and interesting team in the NBA, I would say, because we really don't know what we're getting with these guys right now. Yeah. So he's been there, I think, 7 games. They have the best offensive rating in the league since he came. No surprise there. I mean, maybe a little bit just because we were wondering how the pieces would mesh. But when you have that, 3 guys who can score like that, we kind of expected the offense would be there. The defense, as we also expected, maybe not, we didn't expect it to be this bad, has been the worst in the league. It has been the worst in the league. So that's an area of concern. I think a lot of people are looking at this. And, we had talked about the chemistry. We talked about the meshing and it almost overlooking the defensive aspect of this, where maybe we should have zeroed in on this. And you start to think of this team like who's going to be guarding guys down the stretch in playoff games. Like Kevin Durant coming off his Achilles injury is probably their best defender. Yeah. He's probably going to be the guy matched up on the other team's best player in the playoffs. Now, Kevin Durant in 2018 and 2017 definitely was that guy. I mean, he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate his last year with the Warriors before he really got hurt. I don't know if he can do that off a torn Achilles. Now, he has beaten every expectation so far off of that torn Achilles, as we will talk about shortly, I'm sure, with the MVP race. Mm-hmm. But to ask him to do that on offense and defense is going to be a load. Now, maybe it's a product of they're not taking these regular season games super seriously, right, especially on the defensive end, and those things will tighten up. If you look at their fourth quarter efficiency, it's insane. I mean, it's actually insane, like, to look at. Because you would think, like, okay, like, we know that the defense is going to tighten up in the playoffs for them and for the other team. How will they perform then? Well, probably, I would say in the regular season, at least before the All-Star break, kind of the only time we get any kind of playoff intensity, quote-unquote, basketball, and it's really not even, but would be like the fourth quarter of these games. Like down the stretch, that's when teams start to maybe like turn it up a little bit on defense. Right. They have been unbelievable in the fourth quarter on offense, right? I think their offensive rating, so like per 100 possessions, they're like 134 points in the fourth quarters. That's insane. For reference, like the league leaders right now normally are at about 118 points per possession. The Mavs broke the record last year at about 119 points per possession. Now that's their fourth quarter number. So if you're thinking defense shrinks a little bit in fourth quarter, they don't seem to slow down. If anything, they get a little bit better maybe. It's the defense that is the trouble spot. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah. That's the only issue that you can really find with this team, but it's such a glaring issue that it makes me wonder if they can even come out of the East. And that sounds crazy to say about a team that has Kyrie, James Harden, and KD. But like you mentioned, like of those three guys, KD's the only one who plays defense at all. James Harden is any effort you get out of him, you're happy with. But typically you can't count on that from him. Kyrie will give you the effort, but he's not typically a good defender. Right. So sure, you can count on KD to guard, the forwards, the tougher forwards that you're going to see, especially in the playoffs. So for example, Giannis, I feel confident with him guarding Giannis and things like that. However, if they were to see the Bucks, second round like they're looking at right now, who's guarding Drew Holiday? Right. And Drew Holiday is not like the super elite scorer, but Colin Sexton's been giving you fits. Like pretty much every guard that you faced has been destroying you. So who's guarding Chris Middleton? Yeah. You know what I mean? That's where it comes down to, and Joe Harris, again, another guy that's going to give the effort defensively, but like he's no stopper. There's no stopper on this team where you can say, especially on the perimeter, which is where most of teams' best players are at the guard position now, just because of the way the game is changing. That's where it concerns me is in playoff time, how are they going to stop guards from doing whatever they want? Colin Sexton had 2 back-to-back incredible games against them and got 2 wins. If the playoffs started today, they would see the Cavs. I don't think that would go. I mean, they'd win that series, but boy, they'd struggle in that.
Quickly, I love Colin Sexton. Can I just say this? I am obsessed with Colin Sexton this year. Sorry.
No, Colin Sexton's been great. And I've liked his game and his mentality actually since high school.
Yeah,
he's just got that pit bull mentality. So I agree with you there. But yeah, I mean, this Nets team just doesn't have any perimeter defenders that you can count on a consistent basis, and that's where this team, I don't know if towards the trade deadline, after the trade deadline, and starting looking at like buyout things like that. That's where this team will really the acquisitions that they make there will determine whether they're actually going to be like championship worthy. And really what I think they need to go out and get is kind of like a point or shooting guard, a smaller kind of defender, because James Harden actually can guard like bigger players pretty well. It's like the shiftier players that give him issues. So you really don't want him guarding like 1s and 2s. You're probably gonna have to slide him to the 3. Maybe you bring Joe Harris off the bench, and that also gives you some offense off the bench anyway. Yeah. So if they can I saw they picked up Shumpert. I don't know how much you're really relying on him, but he'll play D. He will do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's you can see that they know that's an issue and that they're going to try to address it. It just depends on who becomes available for them. In probably the buyout market. I don't know how much trade assets they have after going and getting Harden.
Almost none, and it is going to be the buyout market, and so this could be a completely different conversation if they get somebody. The teams that they have played so far with this, big 3 have not been great teams. So they've played the Cavs twice, the Thunder. They've played the Heat twice, and the Heat have all of their issues with injuries and COVID. And the Wizards, who have been just a mess. They give 149 points to the Wizards last night in regulation, right? It was not an overtime. It was not an overtime game. They gave up 128 to the Hawks, 125 to the Thunder, 125 to the Heat the first time, 147 to the Cavs, 125 to the Cavs. They played one good defensive game against the Heat where they only gave up 85 points. Notably, starting for that game was Kelly Olynyk, Bam, Duncan Robinson, Goran, and Kizi Okpala. So not exactly great competition so far. It'll be interesting to gauge these guys as they go down the stretch. Hopefully, maybe for them can pick up a couple buyout guys, like you said.
Agreed. So they're definitely a team to keep an eye on. I'm interested to see how they match up with my Sixers. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Eastern Conference in a little bit. But let's talk about everyone's favorite conversation, the favorite award in the NBA, the MVP award. Who is your top 5 MVP frontrunners?
Okay, so I will go in reverse order in order to keep you all in suspense till I get to number 1. So number 5, I have KD. I think a lot of people probably have him higher. And I'm also doing this this is also right now, but I'm also kind of projecting out how these guys are trending. And with KD, he's been fantastic, and especially, like I said, off the Achilles injury. I do think that as the season goes on, he probably starts resting more as they start to lean on these other guys. So maybe that takes away. 4, I have Kawhi. He has been amazing. People have not been talking about Kawhi this year.
Yeah.
He has been unreal. Just across the stat sheet, he's doing everything right for them. And they are the first seed in the Western Conference. I know we've talked a lot about the Clippers and how great not the Clippers, I'm sorry, the Lakers, and how great they've looked. And they look better than they did last year, really, at least up to the last couple games they did.
Yeah.
But it's the Clippers right now who are in that 1 seed, and Kawhi has been the biggest reason why. So I think he deserves MVP love, but I have him at 4th because he just doesn't have the statistical, kind of numbers that some of these other guys have, and he's probably going to be rested games as well.
Right.
3 right now, I have Jokic. I think he might ascend to 1 or 2, depending on what Denver does. It looks like they've started to kick it on a little bit. They had a slow start, but now they're starting to win games. They're kicking it on. They won 7 out of their last 10. He probably ascends as they ascend up the standings in the Western Conference. 2, I have LeBron. It's been a great start to the season. Anthony Davis has not given them the production that they might be used to, and he stepped it up, which means, number 1, I got your boy. The number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, it has to be Embiid. It's his award to lose right now. Basically, if they keep that 1 seed and he keeps playing like this and he stays in shape like this, he's going to be the MVP.
Yeah, he's been great, man. So I'll give you my list here before we dive into some of these. At 5, I have Steph Curry.
Of course.
A little bit of bias there. However,
but it's not.
The Warriors, especially when you consider how they looked in the first 2 games, got bombed on national TV by the Nets and the Bucks. Since then, are a playoff team, which not many people expected. And in a tough Western Conference, they're sitting 2 games above 500 right now. And their season, when you look at how the pieces around Steph Curry have played, it's not good. Andrew Wiggins has picked it up as of late. I will give him credit. Got to give it where it's due. But he was off to an awful start. He's starting to play a little bit better. Kelly Oubre has been as bad as you could possibly be. For someone that they were expecting to at least give some production back from what they lost from Clay. But he can't throw a rock in the ocean right now. James Wiseman, who has actually been good as a rookie. In my opinion, I'm not sure why he's only playing 21 minutes a game. To me, I'm not sure what Curry's angle is there. And actually, since Looney's come back, he's started over Wiseman like the last few games. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but Kerr's got 3 championship rings. He might know a little bit more than I do. And Kevon Looney also has 3 championship rings. Right. So maybe that has something to do with it. Right. But to me, Wiseman just gives them that lob threat and things like that they don't really have without him, and an inside scoring presence. And
let's go off from the Warriors here for a second because they're so interesting. Like after that first game on national TV where they got absolutely smoked by the Nets. Do you remember what I texted you after that game? It was how many games before Steph Curry fakes a wrist injury or fakes a twisted ankle and packs it up for the season because it looked that bad. That bad. And he's been just unreal this season. He absolutely deserves to be in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, so I have him in 5th. He's averaging about 27.7 points, 6.1 assists, 5.4 rebounds. 28, 6, and 5 is MVP caliber numbers in my opinion. And the fact that he has this team with Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins playing so badly throughout this season, he has them in the playoff hunt. And really, the West is like after that top 3 is all separated by 1 game. So anybody from the 3 seed to the 8 seed is separated from 1 game. So who knows where they could land? But they look like a playoff team to me, especially when he plays well. They win every time. In 4, I have. In 4, I have Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
With the Clippers, number 1 seed, I agree that we have not talked about Kawhi Leonard enough. As far as, or people aren't talking about how great he's played so far. And a lot of that is because Paul George came out the gate smoking, right? So he was kind of the guy, but lately, Kawhi's made a late push, averaging 26 a game, 26, 5, and 5. I think that might be his assist numbers are higher than probably what they've ever been in his career. And, that makes a difference. And I think the Clippers, the moves they made in the offseason, getting Batum and Ibaka, I think we're starting to see a little more, spacing and more flexibility defensively from them. And I think that's really helping. So I have Kawhi Leonard at 4. At 3 is where Jokic comes in for me. Like you said, Denver's starting to play better. He's been incredible. If you're just looking from a number standpoint, he probably has the best numbers just in general on this list of top 5 guys. And, with his team playing better and better, if they can grab a top 3 or top 2 seed, he's certainly in the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
At number 2 is where I have KD. Now, again, I'm not projecting ahead. I actually still drop in this, but for right now, given that James Harden's only been there for 7 games and Kyrie missed like 2 weeks, with whatever issue he had that he never actually told us.
We still don't know.
We still don't know.
I totally forgot about that. We still don't know why he wasn't there. Okay.
Man's just used up his PTO, but
how about it?
So given that, I have him in second, and from a number standpoint, he's been incredible. So we got to give him his credit there. And then, as now again, I think he actually drops from second, probably out of this top 5, because I just don't think you can give MVP to someone who has James Harden and Kyrie Irving on his team.
Sure.
So we'll see how that pans out throughout the season. But then number 1, I have to agree with you. I think this is Joel Embiid's award to lose as of right now. And, as if you do need me to make the case here, I'll go ahead and make it.
Oh, please do.
28 points, 11 rebounds per game. Defensively, he's been great.
Yep.
And a lot of this, this great play is coming from just him being in shape. He's in so much better shape. He's running the floor. He's taking guys out to the perimeter, and he looks more agile. So I think that's a big reason. But really, look at the Sixers without him. The Sixers record with him and without him is night and day.
Yep.
And to this point, the Sixers with their fully healthy starting 5 have not lost a game yet. That's with Ben, Seth, Tobias, Danny Green, and Joel Embiid have not lost a game yet. So
how many games have they played? Like 5?
No, they've played. I think last time I checked, they were 11-0.
Okay.
So 11 out of 21, because they did miss quite a few games because of the COVID stuff. Yeah, and then Seth was out the longest. So, but when he's not in the lineup, they're significantly worse. I mean, they were flirting with a loss to the Pacers last night, who aren't bad, but it took a little bit for them to come back. They look significantly worse without Joel Embiid on the floor. And a lot of that to me has to do with Ben Simmons, but we'll talk about him later. But to me, he's where you're talking about value, most valuable player. Not only are the number 1 seed in the East, but you can clearly see that the Sixers are a better team by far when he's on the floor.
No LeBron?
Yeah, so LeBron came in at number 6 for me.
Okay.
Now, I think he would have been in my top 5 had they not just lost 2 of their last 3 games and dropped to the 3 seed here. And also, his numbers really aren't that great compared to where they've been in the past. Typically, for him to be in this conversation, he's got to be in the 1 seed for me. So I think, as KD drops out of this list, he'll move up. But again, he's kind of in the situation for me where you got Anthony Davis on your team, and Anthony Davis hasn't been superb this year. But it's hard for me to give a guy an MVP award when there's another top 5 player on his team. To me, that kind of cancels you out of the situation, because I think these other guys are kind of either carrying their teams or have been carrying their teams so far more than LeBron has.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And you're right. The numbers just they're not huge per se, kind of like with the Kawhi situation. Now LeBron's efficiency has been insane.
Yeah.
And they're winning a lot of games. So last couple hasn't been great. So, but probably, as Anthony Davis regresses to what we think Anthony Davis is as a player, maybe LeBron, he loses a little steam with the MVP talk.
Yeah. Agree. So we've talked about the Sixers for a little bit, but top seed in the East?
Yes.
Are the Sixers the team to beat in the East still, even with the Nets right behind them, a couple games back? Are the Sixers the team to beat in the East? And how confident are you that they can come out of the East?
Well, I'll say this. So I was thinking a lot about this team to beat type thing in the East. And, I just don't think that I can say any team is the team to beat besides the Nets because of those three guys.
Yeah.
Those three guys, and we can talk about the defensive rating till the cows come home. At the end of the day, when people turn on these games, they're expecting those three to win.
Yeah.
Right. They're the team. They have those three guys, and nobody else in the East has two guys on that level, really. I don't think any team has two guys who are that level.
Yeah.
You can argue Ben Simmons on any given night, but I don't really see it, especially with the offensive. I'm sure you're going to get into him. But
yeah,
I do think, having Doc Rivers has been good for Joel especially. And if Joel, the thing we always say kind of about the Sixers, come playoff time, Joel is always out of shape.
Yeah.
He's always out of shape. Every year, he's out of shape. You can't keep him in these games. 2 years ago against the Raptors, he was getting owned on the boards by players who were not as good as him. And then last year, same thing. He was just out of shape. He couldn't hang in there with Boston, and that was a sweep. So he looks like he's in shape this year. He looks like it's a different Joel Embiid this year. And it might be. And if it is, suddenly I'm talking about them as maybe not the team to beat over the Nets, but they're definitely the second best team. So I would say my confidence in them to sustain this level to even finish the season as the 1 seed is pretty high because I like what they've done with their roster too, with the shooters they've added. They're probably, even with Seth hasn't even been there a lot, but he's going to add another piece. You're probably going to dive into this more. Looks like they still don't quite know what to do with Ben and Joel on the court at the same time in a half-court offensive set. But I think it's better than it was last year.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than it was last year. So maybe, you continue to work on that through the season and it gets even better. My confidence in that is like a 7. 7, no one else in the East has looked fantastic. That's also helping their case right now is that no one else is blowing us away. Even the Nets who have those three guys, the defense is so bad. The Celtics, they're only 10-8. Now I am liking the Celtics, and that was my preseason pick to win the East. Jaylen Brown has taken a step, 27 a game now. He's a seriously great second dude. He might be, him and Tatum might be the two guys. When you talk about no other team having two guys, those two might be it. But we don't know what we're getting out of Kemba. Kemba, we don't know who he is anymore after all of these injuries. And then there's the Bucks, who, Giannis and the Bucks have shown us the past couple of seasons that we cannot trust them in the playoffs. So this is pretty wide open right now in the East, right? And we knew it would be going into the year. We kind of knew that it would be wide open, and there were about 4 teams who could actually win it. 5 if you include last year's champion Heat, who I have not even mentioned because of the season they've had so far. I'm going to talk about them. Right. I would say the team to beat for me is the Nets because of those 3 guys.
I would agree. I actually do think the Nets are still the team to beat simply because they have those 3 guys.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of confidence in the Sixers.
Don't do this to yourself, Eli. Don't do it,
how
Eli.
they match up with the Nets.
They're going to break your heart, man.
Listen. I'm fully ready for it, right? I'm still gonna go all in and just deal with the heartbreak when it comes because that's what Philly fans do.
Oh, it is.
We drink the Kool-Aid and then we get our hearts broken every time. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna drink the Kool-Aid and let them break my heart. But I think things are a little bit different this time. I think, I'm kind of like the girl whose man keeps cheating, and when he comes back, I'm gonna give him another chance. He's changed, right?
Yeah.
We've got Doc Rivers now. He's matured. So, Joel Embiid's in shape now.
Yeah.
We have veteran leadership, a guy like Danny Green, who's actually won something in his career in our starting lineup. Steph Curry, hasn't been on a ton of winning teams, but a veteran nonetheless, and gives us some older role models. We have guys off the bench. I really love Tyrese Maxey on both ends of the floor. Matisse has found his way back into the rotation and has been super productive. Shake Milton has been a surprise, possibly sixth man of the year candidate, and our third leading scorer. And really, the one thing that gives me any doubt about the Sixers, as always, is Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
And not Ben Simmons the defender. Ben Simmons the defender is incredible. Like, let's just be honest. That dude's defensive player of the year caliber defender, the way that he plays defense. But he's almost regressed offensively to the point where, and I don't know if it's because, he still hasn't figured out how to play with Embiid, but it's not even the fact that he doesn't take threes. It's the fact that he doesn't even drive to the cup hard. You know what I mean? When he gets the chance to, he gets downhill and he'll be full speed and then kick the ball out without even like making any contact with anyone when he's driving down the lane. Even Giannis, when you look at Giannis, who has the same issues that Ben Simmons has, but when Giannis goes to the cup, he'll run you over. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to try to at least get to the cup, get all the way to the rim and finish over top of you, or bully you. And he'll either force you to take a charge, which in the playoffs teams will do, but in the regular season they won't. Mm-hmm. And Ben Simmons doesn't really seem to have that kind of aggression for someone who doesn't shoot jumpers at all. He also has no pull-up mid-range game. So if you're not going to have that aggression going all the way to the rim, you got to at least show that you're willing to pull up from the elbows. And honestly, I think if he was willing to do that, he wouldn't really need a three ball that much, because I think he could get any shot he wants inside the three if he just shoots from the elbows or the foul line area. But that's the one thing that's holding the Sixers back, is just his aggressiveness in general, because that's eventually, don't get me wrong, Shake Milton's been great and Steph Curry has been great, right? We're getting 30 points between those two, but we're only getting 12 a game or 13 a game from Ben Simmons. That's not enough. And for someone who was the number one overall pick, when the playoffs come, I can't rely on Shake Milton. No disrespect to Shake Milton, but I don't want 15 points per game being in his hands. I think I can rely on Seth to knock down some shots and be just, productive in general. But our second best player needs to be Ben Simmons.
And we did this last year with Shake Milton. Remember, it was like Ben Simmons. Well, this is the thing, too. This is why I am hesitant on the Sixers, because, as much as we love what Doc has done, we really still haven't figured out how Joel and Ben play together in a half-court set. We haven't really figured it out, right? So I guess the option has been, well, we'll just maybe they tell Ben to stay out of Joel's way. Has that been the strategy so far? Well, I think that might be working right now, but it's kind of like, you put a Band-Aid on a cracked pool.
Right.
It's going to break, and when the playoffs come, you have to figure this stuff out. You might be able to patch your way through the regular season, but it gets tougher in the playoffs. There are more half-court sets in the playoffs. It's just a problem that needs to be fixed. They have time. The playoffs don't start tomorrow.
Right.
But you're 100% right about, those have to be the two best players on the team in the playoffs.
Yeah. And Tobias Harris, another player that Doc Rivers, I think, has had a positive impact. If you think back, the last time Tobias Harris was this good was when he was playing for Doc Rivers in LA. Doc, I think Tobias has been, his production has kind of masked what, Ben Simmons has been doing, and it's kind of allowed him to just kind of focus on his defense and not really have any pressure to score. He's our fourth leading scorer right now, Ben Simmons. Wow. So, or fifth leading scorer, I'm sorry, if you count Steph Curry. So, I don't know. I don't know that I can, if we can get this kind of production, maybe more out of Tobias Harris, then maybe we don't quite need as much out of Ben Simmons, but I don't know that I can rely on that. I think if we can get Ben Simmons to play superstar level basketball, which he's capable of, that's when I think the Sixers really become the true contender of the East. Because, in order to contend with a team like the Nets, he's going to have to be on the floor, right? Because he's probably the only person on our roster that can somewhat guard KD. And offensively, he can't be a negative out there. He can't just be out there, giving us 8 points, 10 boards, and 10. He can't be Draymond Green offensively if we want to beat the Nets. It's as simple as that.
Let's do this then, just quickly. I'll ask you right now. So you guys got swept by the Celtics last year, right? If you guys matched up in the playoffs starting tomorrow, or even projecting the playoffs this year, would you pick the Sixers or would you pick the Celtics?
I'd take the Sixers. I would. I think we're better than we were then.
Yeah.
And I think we're much better coached. But as assuming Joel Embiid stays in the shape that he's in, he stays healthy. I don't know what they do with him. I don't think that they have anyone at the 5 spot that can really guard him, and that's going to draw doubles. And he's actually been much better passing out of double teams this year. I think that's another reason why he's been so much better is he's getting the ball out of his hands quicker. And a lot of that probably has to do with Doc adjusting the spacing that he has,
spacing,
things like that. But, I do give us an edge over the Celtics. I never loved the matchup with the Celtics. So, I'm not saying 10 out of 10 times we're beating them. That's a 7-game series.
See, my worry is, and the Sixers are better this year. You're right. My worry is we said a lot of this stuff last year. Going into that playoff series, we said a lot of this stuff about the Celtics don't have anybody who can do anything with Joel. Now, if it's a different Joel, it's a different Joel. If he's in shape, it's a different story. I still like the bucket making of those two guys on the Celtics.
Fair. Now, my only thing is I think we're also better defensively than we were last year with Danny Green, Matisse off the bench. I think we have more guys that we can throw at them, include when you already had Ben. I think we have more guys that we can throw at them than we did last year. And I also think that we have a better chance at guarding Kemba Walker this year than we did last year. We didn't really have any perimeter guard defenders. Now we've got guys like Maxey, Matisse, Danny Green, different guys that can also guard, the point guard position. So I think that's where we've gotten better. So we'll see. But I do think the East is wide open. Anybody except probably the Bucks. I don't know why. I don't think the Bucks can win the East because they just all the flaws that they had before are still there.
Yeah.
So
they got Drew. Yeah,
and I like Drew a lot, but do I like him? Do I like him enough that I take them over the Celtics? I don't know.
Yeah, I would probably. Now I don't know. I mean, the Bucks they have not been great this year. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And Middleton probably almost should be more involved than he is. I think they should probably
He's been great.
Decrease Giannis's usage numbers.
Yep.
I know that we spent 3 years talking about Giannis getting a jump shot, but have we ever considered that just put him on the block?
Make him a 5. Make him
a 5.
Shaq.
He's Shaq. What are we doing with him? I don't get this thing where we're well, when Giannis gets a jump shot, he ain't getting a jump shot, bro.
Right.
It ain't happening.
5, bro.
He's 7 foot and all muscle. Those guys don't get jump shots.
with super large hands. Come on.
Right.
He's the more mobile version of he's Orlando Shaq.
He is.
He's Orlando Magic Shaq with a little more muscle definition.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of concludes our Eastern Conference contenders portion. Who in the East do you think right now that people might like that you'd consider a pretender in the East? Someone who's highly up there. Maybe it's the Sixers, but someone who people like in the East that you're not really fond of.
Could be the Sixers. Well, I mean, of all the teams, so who are we including in this? The Sixers, the Nets, the Celtics, the Bucks.
Let's go, top 4. Those are the 4 real teams that have a chance of coming out the East.
But that's the thing. I think that they all could disappoint us.
Yeah.
They all could amaze us, right? So I think if I was going to pick one of those teams and say who's most likely to fall on their face in the playoffs in the first round, I think it's the Sixers. Depending on the seeding. If they're the 1-8 matchup, yeah, they're going to run through whoever the 8 seed is.
Right.
But, like, I'll kick you this. Like, if they're the 3 seed and the Pacers fall to the 6 seed with Brogdon and Sabonis, I know you probably do, but Brogdon and Sabonis are both really good players.
I hate the Pacers and how they match up with the Sixers, not the team. I actually like the Pacers, like how they're constructed, but they match up really well with my Sixers. That's why I hate them.
Wow, there you go. This is what I'm saying. Like, and the fact that I can't definitively say that the Sixers would beat them in a first round series makes them have to be the team most likely. Because I think the Celtics take care of the Pacers. I think the Bucks take care of them. I think the Nets definitely take care of them. The Sixers, what they've shown so far, definitely would. But most likely for a first-round upset, I think it's the Sixers. I'm sorry.
We might be. However, I think Milwaukee is the one team out of these four, for the reasons I said, where I'm like, I don't believe in them. You know what I mean? They're a team where I have to see it to believe it because they've been fool's gold for the last 2 years now. So that's where pretender sticks out and sticks out to me is Milwaukee. Because those other, I think the Sixers are for real this year. I do. I think we're bare minimum, depending on seeding. I think if we get to the number 1 seed, we're in the Eastern Conference Finals. But we're definitely second round with whatever seed we are. I think we're second round at least.
Probably, right? Because we're saying those are the 4 best teams. They should make the second round. What about the Hawks? You in on the Hawks?
Well, not as them jumping into that conversation,
year, right? Like I think like right where they are is probably the best they'll get.
And you know what? I think they actually need to kind of reevaluate their play style because don't get me wrong, Trae Young is incredible with the ball in his hands, but he hasn't been as great as last year. But like we know how good he is.
Yeah.
In pick and roll situations and stuff like that. But I think they're beating that play to death. Like, I think teams are just so, and I think that's why he's struggling, is that that when you're playing the Hawks, you're just going to have to be able to defend the pick and roll. So that's what they're doing. And I think it's kind of limiting some of the other talented guys that they have when really they have the personnel to run like a warrior style system and move the basketball, get guys, and even get him off the ball a little bit more, and they won't do it. And it's there was reports that John Collins said that they need to play a little less through Trae, and I agree with him. I don't think he's wrong at all. I think practically every possession is like, Trae Young, get us a shot, and I don't think you have a team with a bunch of low IQ guys where that's the style that they should be playing. So they actually have a lot of veterans that they brought in, and Clint Capella's been great. And John Collins is a really good player. Cam Reddish, Huerter, they got the Bogdanovich
and Danilo.
Yeah, Danilo. I mean,
and DeAndre Hunter has had a great year. DeAndre Hunter's had an amazing. He's the reason that they are where they are. I mean, if they didn't have DeAndre Hunter, they probably would be closer to where they are. They were last year, just because they wouldn't be able to stop anybody.
They'd be holding hands with the Wizards.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's been great, and that's why I'm like, I think they need to get more people involved into this offense than just Trae Young.
Yeah.
And that's just where me and you, we're not fans of ball dominant point guards. And I understand the cases where a guy might need to be that player when his team is just that bad. The Hawks are not in that category, so I don't understand it.
And they were last year, so maybe it takes a transitional period to kind of like learn to play with other good players for Trae.
Right, maybe.
I also think that there is probably a organizational motive in making sure he always has the ball and gets as many stats as possible to make the Trae Young for Luka trade look not so bad. I don't think they'll ever recover from that, right? But I think kind of the idea, at least last year, was like, well, if he gets as many numbers as possible, it won't look so bad.
Right.
So maybe that's it.
Yeah, true. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about the West.
Okay.
We haven't talked about the West nearly enough here. Clippers sitting at the top at 16-5 due to the Lakers' recent struggles in the last couple of games. Utah sitting at 15-5, a half game back. Lakers in third. at 15-6, and then the Nuggets in fourth at 12-8. Memphis, Phoenix, Portland, Golden State round out the rest of the top 8 there. So, I mean, let's talk about Utah. What side are you putting them in? Contenders? Have they actually improved? Are you buying the Utah hype this year, or are you still waiting and seeing on them?
Well, there is no way that they're better than the Lakers.
Yeah, of course.
But I do love Utah. I love what they've done with this team. And here's the thing about Utah that makes them so dynamic is like they're not actually that dynamic. They just know who they are. They know exactly who they are, who does what for them. And they've had some nice surprises this year, right? Mike Conley.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take credit for calling this on the pregame show, has been more of the Mike Conley that they were expecting when they got him last year. He's kind of fit in now a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then Bogdanovich has been really good, and Gobert is going to be on an all-NBA team this year. He's been that good defensively.
Yeah.
And offensively, his numbers have gone up. They're not using him much more, but his numbers have gone up. Jordan Clarkson has a strong case for Sixth Man of the Year. Jordan Clarkson, it might be the strongest case right now for Sixth Man of the Year. He might win that award if the season ended today. I would, if you're asking me if they're to be a contender, they have to make the Western Conference Finals. I don't see it. I don't think they can beat the Lakers or the Clippers. But I think in that next tier, it's them and Denver, and then there's another gap between the next team.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've solidified themselves as a top 4 team in the West. Yes. The issue is, like we said, that the Lakers and Clippers are so much better than the Nuggets and the Jazz, in my opinion. But they have been better. 6 guys averaging double figures. The Mike Conley, trade that they made last year is starting to pay off more this year. Jordan Clarkson's been great. Like you said, he's their second leading scorer. And that's all you can really ask for from a guy like him coming off the bench, bringing you offense. Donovan Mitchell has been typical Donovan Mitchell, and while we're on the Jazz, I want to throw something at you that we haven't talked about. But Shaq had some pretty harsh and random criticisms for Rudy Gobert first on Instagram.
Oh, really?
Saw that. Yeah,
I didn't see the Gobert.
Yeah, and then the Donovan. I'm sure you saw the Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, where he just randomly.
Yeah, and I'm just like, does he have a problem with the Jazz, or like what's up with Shaq and the haterade?
Well, there is some serious haterade coming from Shaq, and also like if he's telling Donovan Mitchell like you're not one of the 3 best players in the league, like I'm sure Donovan Mitchell's like, yeah, I'm probably not. Like,
yeah, right.
I'm okay. Like that's okay. Like I'm okay where I'm. Like it was weird to me. Of course, it was random. I don't know what the Twitter reaction was, but I'm sure it was like, what is wrong with Shaq? Like,
yeah, and it wasn't even like so. I guess and when Donovan Mitchell just kind of shrugged it off, he was like, that's the answer I was looking for. But it didn't come off to me when he initially said it like he was trying to like motivate Donovan Mitchell to go up into this other tier of.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah, I guess that's what he kind of tried to make it seem like after Donovan Mitchell was just like, all right, whatever. He was like, yep, that's the answer I'm looking for. I'm like, no, that wasn't. That wasn't the answer you were looking for. There was 2 things I think Shaq was trying to do. One, maybe he criticized him earlier in the game or earlier in the week, something like that, or criticized him before and wanted to be the guy who's like, I'll criticize you on the air and I'll criticize you to your face in a post-game interview. And then I think when he saw Donovan's reaction, he was just kind of like, yeah, let me back off of that a little bit. Because, he's a nice guy. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't do anything to deserve that. So, and maybe he was just kind of then trying to play it off as the big brother. But to me, that was so weird. And to me, I can't get down with the ex players hating on the new players. Like, there's a difference between giving your analysis and then just telling a guy that he's not good in an interview.
Well, also like Shaq, like being like, oh, like I'll be the guy to motivate Donovan Mitchell, like by talking shit to him in this post game interview. Like Donovan Mitchell's like, why do I care what you say? Like, you're not my dad. Like, I don't like. Like, why is Shaq taking on this responsibility to be like the guy who kicks young players in the ass? Like,
yes, man. If you ain't in his circle, you don't need to do that. Unless you're like his mentor,
right.
you don't need to do that.
Or even like if Chuck did that on TNT, it'd be like, okay, like Chuck, you're goofy, you know what I'm saying? Like then Shaq, like just with like you suck, man. You like, what are you doing, Shaq? Like I just like yeah, that was weird.
But yeah, so back to the teams in the Western Conference. So, Utah, I think, is a solid team. I think they'll stay in that top 4 range.
Yeah.
What about the Suns?
I love the Suns.
I love how they're built, but for some reason it hasn't, clicked so far. And maybe they're right around where we thought they'd be at the 6th seed. I never really thought they'd be more than 3 at best. Best case scenario would be a 3 seed. But they're sitting at 2 games above 500. They've been missing Booker the last couple of games.
Right.
But Mikal Bridges has been great for them, right? He's really stepped up here this year, right?
Yeah, Bridges has been kind of like amazing, like probably better than they could have ever expected out of him this year. Our boy Cam Johnson is still doing his thing.
Yeah, shout out to Cam.
I think that there is something to be said for like, well, first of all, they don't have much of a bench besides Jay Crowder.
Yeah.
Who is a great bench piece, but if you're asking for like scoring off the bench, Cameron Payne, I don't know how much I like that. They've been going with Abdel Nader more. Definitely don't like that, but like, I also think like, I think Devin Booker. This is gonna sound wrong to people, and I'm gonna seem like a hater here, but like, he has this reputation of being like this guy that he's actually never really been. Like he's never actually won anything, and also he's not this guy who like averages 30 a game like this premier scorer, and he probably never will be this guy who averages 30 a game because he is like a guard. Like we're not going to see that much anymore. Like it's only going to be forwards who are really doing that, or really ball dominant point guards, which he's not like a ball dominant type of guy. Right. So I think like if you're looking at the pieces they have, they don't really have that star top 15 player in the league. I don't think Booker's a top 15 player in the league. Maybe he's close. Maybe some people would have him in there. I don't have him.
He's fringe at best. If
he's fringe, right? 15 to 20, maybe 15 to 20. So if he's your best player, that's pretty good. But you're probably going to be sitting at about the 5 or 6 seed in the West, even though they have a pretty good supporting cast, not a great bench. I think it kind of makes sense where they are. Maybe they're a year away yet.
Yeah, I think they're probably still a year away. The problem is that Chris Paul probably isn't there next year, and that actually probably ends up being a step back for them. But I do like the improvement in Mikal Bridges. I think that is a positive. What concerns me the most, and what I thought we'd see by now, is the progression of DeAndre Ayton, and we're not seeing that. And not that he's been bad, but like we're talking about a guy who went before Luka Doncic, Trae Young, those kind of guys who have been elite so far, and he hasn't set himself up to even really look like he's anywhere close to like a top 5 center in the game. I don't even know that I'd put him in my top 10. When you factor in just maybe offensively, he's probably just his skill set alone is probably top 10, but like from impact, he's not a top 10 center in the league. And I think that's really what they need is him to improve, because, that's what you're kind of building this franchise around, is maybe Booker never gets to a top 10 caliber player, but if he's maybe top 15 and then DeAndre Ayton's top 25,
right,
you're talking about 2 guys who can
with the Chris Paul,
with the Chris Paul, with Mikal Bridges being playing the way he is, and Cam Johnson playing the way he is. Like that's when you're looking at like, okay, the Suns might be for real, and especially when you factor in anybody with a good big man like that who's good on both ends of the floor has a chance, because that's a rare thing that you see in today's game. So I don't know what. And I thought Chris Paul would kind of help him with the pick and roll and stuff like that. I thought he'd get a lot more easy baskets. That doesn't seem to be the case. He's rebounding well, and I think it's been okay defensively. But 14 points per game ain't cutting it for a number 1 pick. It's kind of like the Ben Simmons thing to me. Is like, you're a number 1 pick, dude. Like you can't be out there averaging 14 or under points per game. That just doesn't cut it for me.
Yeah, but at least Ben, you like when the Sixers play, like you see Ben Simmons and like he's doing things and like he kind of pops on the screen. Like Aiden,
he
like
does.
I be forgetting Aiden's out there. Like he's just like another guy on the court. He could be Clint Capella for all I know. Like you know what I mean? Like he just doesn't make an impact. And Chris Paul actually, like, of course, we love him and he's old also, so he gets some slack. But like he hasn't exactly been great. You know, he hasn't been probably last year. He hasn't been what he's not what he was last year. No.
Right. Yeah. What about Memphis?
Dude, Memphis is interesting, right? So they've won 6 in a row. Kind of, it's funny, like they missed all these games because of COVID. Kind of like the best thing that it could have happened, right? Because they got Ja back. He was out and now he's back, and they've won 6 in a row. I'm out. I'm the pretenders to me.
Yeah.
I just don't think their roster is good enough to make the playoffs in the West, and I'm staying consistent because I did have them took the under and was going missing for them to miss the playoffs this year. I just like when you look at some of the guys that are like starting, like Jaren Jackson's not back yet. So like that's creating a huge hole at the center position. Like Xavier Tillman is not a starting center in the NBA. Like he's only playing like 20 minutes a game starting, but like Georgie Jang isn't a starting center either coming off the bench. They've got Kyle Anderson starting, who I can appreciate the little things that Kyle Anderson does as a bench guy, right? Like he's not, he's not, you know what I mean? Like he's just not a guy you want as, he's like Andre Miller, right? Like Andre Miller was a great backup point guard forever. You wouldn't want him as your starting point guard per se. Right. I just don't know that the guys around Ja are good enough to take this team to the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think they have really good role players. Like I like Dylan Brooks as a 3-and-D guy. I really like Brandon Clark. Jaren Jackson, I think, is closer to a stud than he is a role player. But they don't have him right now. So, and who knows when I think he's getting close to coming back, but who knows if he's the same when he comes back. That's a pretty major knee injury he had. But then outside of that, there's really no second. I think Jaren Jackson has to be like your third best player for you to be a playoff contender, at least at this stage for the Grizzlies. They don't have that other guy that they can really rely on besides Ja to get them, points on offense.
Yeah.
So here are the Clippers again. Now this time they're the number 1 seed. Are we buying in on the Clippers after they let us down last year? Are they different, or is this just regular season LA?
Well, here's why they could be different. There's a strong chance that Kawhi tells Paul George to sit down and shut up during the playoffs and takes it over himself. Now, playoff P is going to playoff P, and that could be the downfall of this team. If they're anything like they are in this regular season right now, they're going to be in the Western Conference Finals. And I wouldn't be surprised, just from motivation alone, from getting beat last year, they make the Western Conference Finals. I just can't see them beating the Lakers, man. Like, Anthony Davis is such a problem for them.
Yeah.
And then when you take away Trez from the Clippers and put him on the Lakers, now I think Ibaka is better than Trez, and that's a better pickup to have the Clippers to have Ibaka than to have Trez. But that's still a huge piece missing from that bench that was so strong last year. And you add him to the Lakers. So I'm still rolling with the Lakers as the team to beat, best team until someone shows me otherwise in the playoffs. But I think the Clippers are the second best team.
I agree. I still think they're the second best team, and it's because of Anthony Davis. As much as I like what Ibaka has brought to this team and what Batum has brought to this team, neither of them. Well, Ibaka probably has a better chance than Batum, but neither of them, you really love that matchup with AD. I mean, Ibaka's, I think you like it, but again, AD's still one of the best players in the league.
Yep.
And then that's where it kind of gets iffy is because, maybe you have to slide Ibaka onto AD. So you have to start Zubac to guard Marc Gasol. You know what I mean? And that's where you kind of maybe have to think about changing your strategy. And really, I think that Ibaka cutting down Zubac's minutes is what's making them better. Not that I don't like Zubac, but I think he's a rotational big more than he is a starter. Like last year in the playoffs, he was playing close to 25 minutes per game. I don't think you want that. And Denver exposed that, honestly, by putting him in a ton of pick and rolls. I don't think you can really attack the Clippers this year that easily in the pick and roll with Ibaka there, because he can switch, he can hedge and get back and protect the rim. So it's not quite as easy to play against them in pick and roll situations when Ibaka's at the 5. But I don't know that he could do that against the Lakers. So I still think the Lakers are the best team in the West. But I think the Clippers are better than last year. I think they are, with the addition of Ibaka. I think I agree with you, though. I think they will miss a guy like Trez. I think ideally you would have liked to keep him and add Ibaka, but I think losing him to the Lakers to where, now coming off the bench, he's an offensive rebound problem for you and a pick and roll threat as the roller. I don't love that situation for the Clippers. His interior defense is their issue. And they also seem to get lit up by guards. Weirdly, at random spots, they seem to get lit up by guards when they're supposed to have one of the best defensive trios in Pat Bev, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard. Somebody of those three is a fraud.
It's Pat Bev.
I think it's definitely Pat Bev, right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's as good of a defender as.
I can't stand that guy, man. I don't not like a lot of NBA players, and of course I like all of them. But sports hate. I don't sports hate a lot of NBA players or NBA teams, really. Just the nature of growing up in Pittsburgh, we didn't have a team, so it was kind of like cheer for everybody, and not a lot of people we didn't like. Pat Bev is a dude. Cannot stand watching him play. Just like gross.
I think he's more of a hacker than he is a defender, but that's just me.
Oh, he's a hack for sure.
All right, so let's talk about and close out today's show with some teams that are disappointing so far, and there's quite a few.
There is
on both conferences. So, do you want to rant about your Raptors first?
I'm actually feeling fine about the Raptors, to be honest.
You are? Okay.
It has been disappointing, I will say. Now, listen, what people don't understand about the Raptors this year, we have 0 home games. Okay, you see the Raptors are at home. We're playing in Florida. These home games are their home games. Okay, so I think we need to cut the Raptors some slack. But whatever excuses, they're going to be playing that way. So if they're going to suck, they're going to suck. They're 8-12 right now. That's actually better than how they started. So they have shown some improvement. Siakam took a little bit to get in a groove. Lowry and Van Vliet were not themselves to start the season, but they're starting to come on. Now, the lack of a big, and we knew this would be the issue when Gasol and Ibaka both walked away. It has been an issue, right? Turns out Aaron Baines and Chris Boucher are not Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka. As much as we liked Aaron Baines coming into the season, as much as I liked him coming into the season, he's just not those guys. Yeah. So it's gonna be an issue, and the biggest thing is stops with the Raptors. If they can get stops, they'll be in the game, and I think they win a lot of games down the stretch with the guys they have in Kyle and Fred. When they can't get stops, they're not going to outscore any of these teams, right? So you see the Pacers put up 129. Like, they have no chance when a team scores that many points. So it's going to be tough. It's always a struggle. It's been a struggle to score. And Siakam, I think we've reached his ceiling. Whatever that is, we found it. He's not going to be this superstar top 10 player in the league. He's just not. But I think they're good enough. I think they do. I think they're going to make the playoffs yet. I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but
because how confident are you that Charlotte holds that 8 seed?
Well, Charlotte, I'm sure Cleveland is going to find their way back down where they maybe should be, but so I think the Raptors do get in. Probably the Raptors and the Heat replace the Cavs and the Hornets is probably how it's going to go. That's the other team I'm sure we'll talk about. But I'm actually not feeling too bad about the Raptors, to be honest.
Fair. You know who I'm incredibly disappointed in, and maybe I shouldn't, but I am. The Mavericks.
Yeah,
what's wrong with the Mavs? Granted, I get it. You don't have KP, but
they have. He came back.
Oh,
he's been back. He's been back.
Yeah.
He played a couple games. Games.
So, maybe he's not in rhythm yet. I don't know. But I think, I thought the Josh Richardson ad would do a little bit more for them defensively. It hasn't. Um, and I wonder if they're falling into a similar thing as the Hawks, where Luka Doncic just has the ball too much. And granted, 27, 9, and 9, it's hard to say, hey, let's get the ball out of his hands some, right? But he still, for one, hasn't really developed into a consistent shooter from the three or the foul line. He's shooting about 76% from the foul line, which is better, but he's shooting 29% from three. And for someone to have the ball that much in his hands that much, I think you need to be more reliable from those two areas, especially with the type of style that they play.
Yes.
And I think they're another team where you have other guys who can do things with the ball. I think they need a little bit more movement. And maybe with KP coming back, that gives them some more rim protection. But I don't know. I can't really pinpoint what their problem is. It's definitely on the defensive end. That's a big issue for them. But offensively, they don't seem to be as much of a juggernaut. Like last year, they were a top 5 offensive team.
Top 1.
Wise. Yeah, I was going to say they were like the number 1 offensive team heading into the playoffs. That has not been the case. Maybe Steph Curry is hurting there. I don't know, but
yeah,
there's a drop off.
The Seth Curry for Richardson trade made a lot of sense when it happened for both teams.
Yeah.
I think now that we're into it, it did make a lot of sense for the Mavs to lose that shooter because Richardson just isn't the shooter that Curry is. And to have a guy who can shoot like that next to Luka makes a lot of sense. But this is just and we talk about this all the time. This is the existential crisis, the existential question of NBA and basketball in general is you have these superstars who are so good with the ball in their hands, and the numbers show that when the ball is in their hands, it produces good things most of the time. Here's the problem with this. There is something that we can't pinpoint in these numbers that is related to how a team actually functions.
Yes.
And how other guys are involved. How do you put a number on getting a touch on a possession, even if I don't shoot or do anything significant with it? How do I put a number on running through the lane on offense instead of just standing in the corner, setting screens for others? You can't put numbers on this stuff. Yes. And what it does is when you have a guy like Luka or Harden or Trae Young, who and to be fair to Luka, I think he does a better job than those guys at getting his teammates involved.
I agree.
But when he has the ball that much and there's so much pick and roll, other guys can only be so involved. And that does something to a team, and we see it. We saw this last year with the Mavs when they were the best offense in the league, but they had the worst clutch numbers in the league. That's just not how it works. There's something to be said, and this is a thing that we talk about all the time, and it's this huge question facing basketball is how do we navigate these numbers and actual, what's going on the court in people's brains. These are real people out there too. That's the thing too, is we have to realize these are real people. If I go stand in the corner for 10 straight possessions, I'm probably not feeling great. You know what I mean? There's just something to that. So we have to find a balance here. And, the Mavs, they've had a couple of COVID issues. Maybe they get some slack. KP has missed a lot. He came back for a couple games. He's been really bad since he's been back. He is not. He looks like he might be done. It's bad the way he looks. And Luka is, Luka is the same Luka he was last year, basically.
Right. Yeah.
But we were expecting him to take a little bit of a leap with his shooting numbers, and it just hasn't happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you make a great point where statistically there are just certain things that won't show up on stat sheets that actually have an impact in the game. And to echo that, I watched a Draymond Green interview. I can't remember who he was talking to, but there was one point, and it was back during the Mark Jackson era, right before Mark Jackson left the Warriors, where the Warriors were playing a road game in San Antonio, and Curry was destroying the Spurs on high pick and rolls. So Draymond's telling this story about how Curry was making everything. He was coming off every screen, not pick and roll style with the ball in his hands the whole game, just knocking everything down. and the Spurs didn't adjust once. They didn't change their pick and roll coverage not one time. So everybody on the Warriors was just standing still, watching Steph Curry absolutely annihilate the Spurs for like the second and third quarter, I think is what he said. And all of a sudden, Steph started missing shots. And now it's like, okay, well, he's not hot anymore. Now let's get the ball to Clay. Now let's get the ball to so-and-so. Well, they haven't shot the ball in 2 to 3 quarters, or they haven't shot it in 5 or 6 possessions. Now you're asking them to get hot. That's hard to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? As a basketball player, if you've ever played the game, that's hard to do, is to just stand in the corner or stand on the wing for 7, 8 possessions in a row, not even get a touch. Or if you do get a touch, you're giving it right back, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, it's hard to then say, oh, all right, well, now our guy is cooled down. Let me try to get back in a rhythm. It doesn't work that way. However, when you come down, you run an offense. I've touched it at least, even if Steph was destroying these guys. But now I've touched it at least in each of the last 10 possessions, and we're moving. There's energy flowing. You know what I mean? And Steph is getting every shot, but it's after everybody has touched the basketball, or 4 guys have touched the basketball. It's a totally different scenario than when he starts to miss shots. It's like, all right, well, I'm in a rhythm now. I've touched it a few times. You know, I see now they're doubling Steph. The slips are there, whatever. You know what I mean? So that's where those are things that you can't put in stats. Yeah. And those are the things where, you know, that's why I value Draymond Green so much higher than other people don't, because he knows things like that. He understands things like that. And that's why they were so great for so long, regardless of who they plugged into their system, because they understood the concept of moving without the basketball. And Steve Kerr, who came in and introduced that motion offense that they now run, played for Pop. A lot of his philosophies come from Pop, you know, and you see those are the teams that sustain success for the longest periods of time. And you have to be able to, especially when you look at the Hawks and the Mavs, both of those teams have, like we said, capable players who you can run these kind of offenses with. Tim Hardaway Jr. is no scrub. Jalen Brunson's not a scrub. He's a high IQ player, Villanova grad. You know, Josh Richardson's a high IQ player who can do multiple things with the ball. You don't have to limit these guys to spot up shooters just because you want, obviously, your best player to have the ball in his hands. And the other thing that it does is when there's more movement and you're not relying on Luka for the entire first 3 quarters, when the fourth quarter comes, he has fresher legs.
Sure.
And the defense hasn't seen your high pick and rolls for 3 straight quarters and now can make adjustments to it. You know what I mean? They've been worried about other guys so far, and now it's harder to adjust in a 12-minute quarter. Now, if you want to go, all right, Luka, it's time to take over, you want to go into that mode, it's harder to stop Luka when he has fresh legs and the defense hasn't seen him run his favorite set all game. Those are just those are things that you can't put down on a piece of paper or put in a stat.
Couldn't agree more, Coop. And we will go to our graves fighting the NBA analytical movement, and we will fail because they will keep plugging on. One day there will be a reckoning, though, and we will show them this podcast.
That and the shoot that we're going to fight analytics to the death. Yes. And shoot first point guard. The shoot first point guard.
Yeah. That one's first. We gotta get that one first. Well, they're kind of related though.
They are. Yes,
you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
So
it's hard. I'm fighting that every day. So coaching, I'm trying to get guys out of that mentality of standing still, watching one guy do everything. So I'm doing my part. All right. So who else is on your hate list so far this season, or teams that have disappointed you?
Probably out with the Pelicans. I don't even know if I would say they've disappointed me per se, but they've been disappointing in general.
Yeah.
Just like, I think we kind of knew that this was a weird team with how they were built, like with the Steve Adams, Zion, and BI thing. Like, 3 good players, 2 of them better than the third, but like, I just don't know how they mix on a 2021 NBA basketball court. And Zion and Brandon Ingram in general.
Yeah, right. And then you got that front court. You don't know how that meshes. And then your back court is Lonzo and Eric Bledsoe.
Right. So like you put 2 guys who can't shoot next to your like 3 towers. Like, I don't quite get it. And they have like JJ off the bench, who's probably going to get moved because I'm sure that they're looking at this season thinking we're not ready to compete yet.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have big decisions to make, right? Like at some point they have to decide if Zion and Brandon Ingram work together.
Yeah.
The evidence right now says no. If you look at when they were together last year, after Zion came back through this year, they're both putting up pretty good numbers. But like we just said, something isn't meshing.
Yeah.
And it's not leading to wins. So I think they have a big decision to make.
Yeah,
I'd roll with Zion personally.
Well, yeah, I think you would have to if it ever came down to that. I think they have the luxury of time with those two at least. Who they don't have the luxury of time with is Lonzo. You've got to make a decision on Lonzo Ball and whether he's your point guard, and maybe that will actually help them because maybe you get a better shooting point guard or something like that. Maybe he spaces the floor a little better for Brandon and Zion. I don't mind Zion and Steven Adams in the front court. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I think Zion has to become a better 3-point shooter for that to work, though, where he can be a little more of a stretch four.
Yeah.
And really, I think that would just elevate his game in general. But, I think there's not enough shooting on this Pelicans roster to space the floor for BI and Zion to coexist with the Steven Adams. That's just – those three alone that's not a lot of shooting, and then your backcourt can't shoot. It's just too much.
The Steven Adams thing was the dumbest, probably the dumbest move of the offseason.
That was
right?
that and the think the Bledsoe. I mean the Drew Holiday trade
and
was
the
bad.
Drew
I didn't understand
trade,
that.
I don't get, and I know that David Griffin is like, we've anointed him as one of the great GMs in the league because. Right. I guess getting number 1 picks to fall to you in the lottery makes you a great GM.
Hard,
so he's like this great GM that nobody ever criticizes. I think he has a lot of friends in the media is probably why.
Yeah.
But some of these moves, you're like, what are you doing? That makes no sense when they make the move. And then, of course, it plays out that way. So we're not super surprised. I think a lot of people are surprised that they've struggled.
Yeah. Hopefully JJ ends up back in Philly. There's been some rumors about that. And Lonzo Ball seems to be on the trading block as well. I'm interested to see where he lands. And if Dad is happy about it, which he won't be.
He's gonna go to Charlotte.
that would be the media circus of the year, wouldn't it? With LaMelo already coming off the bench, he's already expressed his displeasure about that.
Who's the best suitor for JJ Redick? Who do you think? Where does it make the most sense? Do you think?
Well, he's obviously
for him.
For him personally, I think the Lakers would be a good fit for him. If there was some way that they could do that, that's one thing that they lack. They don't have like a true sniper that they can kind of bring in.
Sure.
Milwaukee obviously makes a ton of sense.
I was thinking of Milwaukee.
They need as much shooting as they can possibly get. I would say those two are probably the best fits. The Sixers are always going to look for shooting as long as they have Ben and Joel, so maybe they're a distant third. But I think the Lakers and the Bucks could probably use them the most.
I was thinking of return back to the Clippers, actually.
They also could use some perimeter shooting as well. Yeah.
I mean, we can do this. Every team
needs that, but
that. But who is lacking it? Because Luke Kennard has kind of sucked. Like he's not who they thought he was going to be when they gave him all that money. I don't think.
I agree. So are we out on the Heat? I mean, you think they're still going to turn around and get – I shouldn't say out on the Heat. I should say, are we going to be as harsh on the Heat as their record says we should? Or are we giving them a pass because Jimmy Butler's been out for like a month?
I think they get a pass.
I agree.
I think they get a pass until what are that now? They're at the 19-game mark. Let's give them until – what's the halfway point? 36 games?
Yeah.
Let's wait till the halfway mark, see where they are. Because, it's just like so – and this is NBA this is life in 2021 is, COVID issues and stuff. So we don't know. But let's give them a pass for now, I think.
I agree. I'm going to give them a pass for now as well until they get their leader back.
Wizards get no pass. Wizards are bums.
Just trade Bradley Beal, blow it up.
Don't even trade him. Screw Bradley. I'm so sick of Bradley Beal.
Oh, come on. He's playing so well.
I feel so bad for Bradley Beal. Hey, dude, Why don't you play one possession of defense? Okay, play one possession of defense before oh, this is terrible. I feel so bad for Bradley. Okay, well, Bradley Beal, guess what? The guy next to you was all NBA third team last year. Whether or not he deserved it, we can question that. But he was right next to you. You have two of you guys, okay? You shouldn't be 4-12. Okay? And if you're 4-12, like this is the thing, like, and now I'm gonna go off because Matthew Stafford gets traded over the weekend, right?
Oh,
and Matthew Stafford, everyone's like, oh, Matthew Stafford, like the Rams got Matthew Stafford. Like, guess what? You know what Matthew Stafford is? He's a freaking loser. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I agree. I'm on the same page.
Oh, like well, they never put a team around him. He never had any help. It's been 11 years. Like the guy he's the quarterback. Eventually, like you have to take responsibility. And Matthew Stafford is a loser. Okay, Bradley Beal. Eventually, you have to take responsibility. Okay, he's proving it out. Okay, I don't need to say this. Everyone sees it. They're 4-12. Bradley Beal is a loser. Okay, I'm sorry. He deserves responsibility for this too. I know Russ has been bad,
yeah. Listen, Brad Beal is not someone you want as your best player. It's just as simple as that.
Yes,
he's averaging 35, 5, and 5, and they're 4-12. That should tell that alone, because any other superstar in the league puts up those numbers is not 4-12. And granted, I'm not a Brad Beal hater. I actually really love Brad Beal, but I really love him as your second and really your third best player, right? And on a team with other good defenders. Like I would love him on the Sixers. I would love him if we didn't have to give up Ben. I would love him on the Sixers. We would have at this point because he's destroying. Statistically, we would have to give up Ben. I think there might have been a time where we could have got him without giving up Ben last year. But at this point, I think that's the kind of fit for him, though, right? Like, or the Lakers.
Yes.
I think he'd be really, really good on the Lakers.
I see that. And they don't need him to be a defensive player. They don't need him to contribute anything on defense, even if he's the worst defender.
And I think he would play more defense on a better team. I think that typically naturally happens because like LeBron's not putting up with that shit. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So I think he plays more defense if he's on a better team, not a ton more. I don't think he's a lockdown guy, but like that's the situation Brad Beal needs to be in for your team to be good. And I think that's just how it is. Like remember when Kevin Love was the best player in the Timberwolves and his numbers were incredible. And I was trying to tell everyone that like, listen, Kevin Love's good, but for you to win a championship with Kevin Love on your team, he has to be your third best player.
Yes.
Cavs proved it. You know what I mean? That's exactly what happened. So it's just
and they barely won.
Exactly.
Well, here's the thing. And example. Like what has been happening in the news, a lot of people are talking about like market manipulation with GameStop, right? Okay, we've been talking about this a lot. NBA teams do this, okay? Mm-hmm. Stat manipulation, okay? It's market manipulation.
Yep.
Trae Young, what I just mentioned, okay? Last year when they were trying to make the draft pick not seem so bad. Let's get Trae the ball. Let's get him in position. Last year, the Wizards with Bradley Beal. Let's get Brad Beal the ball more, up his trade value, right? Up the trade. There you are. Up his trade value, right? And then try to make a deal for him, right? They ended up not doing that. And like, I just think, and it all goes back to the conversation we just had about guys having the ball a lot and what they can do with it. Like, we have to start, there should be weighted. People should have a weighted points per game compared to their usage rates.
I would love that. I would love for someone to develop that formula. I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good. Nope.
Slander for Brad Beal.
I'm just cooling down over here, man.
All right. Well, that wraps up today's topics. We went a little long, man. But
yeah, we did. Yeah,
we've been off for.
It's been a minute.
It's the debut of season 2. We're giving you extra content, guys. Enjoy it. Love it.
Yep.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. Remember, you can find us on social media, on Facebook, IG, and Twitter All In Network is our Facebook and IG. It's at all_in_pod on Twitter. Make sure you follow us. We're gonna start getting active and doing some more polls, things like that as the NBA season goes on. Make sure you guys subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. If you're listening in on the audio, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well, and leave a rating, a review, things like that help our podcast get noticed. This season, we're coming back with some fire for you guys, so stay tuned for more All In podcasts. And remember to head over to our website, allinnetwork.net, for merch, the All In Politics podcast. And
yep.
Mike, anything you want to say to the people as we close out?
Well, I think you nailed it.
Season 2?
I think you nailed the plugs there. You did a great job with those. Yeah, make sure you do all the things Eli just told you to. We are coming back hot and heavy. We're going to be doing some more stuff. Gambling stuff too. I want to do some more gambling stuff. We're gonna be coming in. We're gonna be coming in hot.
Yeah, we're
season all excited.
Maybe get some help from All In Bets.
Oh, wow, that's gonna be interesting.
See how that goes.
Stay tuned, people.
Stay tuned. We'll see you guys again for our next episode when we preview the Super Bowl. Stay tuned.
Right.
See you guys.